For most of my adult life, Lake Serenity had been exactly what its name promised: quiet, predictable, and peaceful. I'd lived in Pine Ridge for 15 years, tucked into a modest cabin my grandfather built in the 1960s, back when the lake was still advertised as a hidden retreat for families who wanted nature without chaos. We all knew each other. We shared docks, bonfires, and the understanding that the lake wasn't just scenery, it was the heart of the community. That balance shattered the moment Karen Piton became HOA president. Karen hadn't grown up here. She moved in just 2 years earlier and immediately bought 3 neighboring cabins on the eastern shore, converting them into high-end, short-term rentals. Where the rest of us saw homes, she saw income streams. When she ran for HOA president, she pitched herself as a reformer, someone who would restore Pine Ridge to its former glory. None of us realized that, to Karen, glory meant control. Within weeks, she began combing through decades-old HOA bylaws like a prosecutor hunting loopholes. That's when she found the clause about unauthorized structures extending into the lake. According to her interpretation, any dock built after 1975 required HOA approval supported by original permits, documents most longtime residents no longer had. Violation notices went out like wildfire. 2/3 of lakefront homeowners received letters demanding proof or removal of docks within 30 days. Families who'd used the same docks for generations were suddenly being treated like trespassers. The neighborhood erupted. At the next HOA meeting, the clubhouse overflowed with angry residents. I stood up during public comment and introduced myself not just as a homeowner, but as a licensed environmental engineer with 25 years of experience in watershed management. I explained that the docks were long-standing, environmentally stable, and legally grandfathered. Removing them, I warned, could destabilize the shoreline and damage the ecosystem. Karen smiled, the way people do when they think they're smarter than everyone else. She thanked me for my opinion, then dismissed it outright. Rules were rules, she said. If we didn't like them, we shouldn't have bought property in an HOA community. Then she unveiled her solution. Rather than forcing dock-by-dock removals, Karen proposed partially draining Lake Serenity to reset the shoreline to its original 1972 boundaries. She claimed this would solve the dock issue permanently while improving water quality. The room exploded. Residents shouted. A retired lawyer questioned the HOA's authority. Others warned about fish kills and erosion. I explained again that Lake Serenity's hydrology was delicate, fed by underground springs and balanced outflow. Artificially lowering the water without proper studies was dangerous. Karen didn't care. She'd already lined up 2 like-minded board members, both rental owners, and forced the plan through on a narrow vote. The drainage was scheduled for early September. That night, I started documenting everything. Because when someone ignores experts, silences warnings, and plays engineer with a natural system, they don't just break rules, they set disasters in motion. The drainage began on September 5th, and from the very first day, it felt wrong. A crew from a company called Rapid Flow Solutions rolled in with portable pumps and plastic hoses, setting up like they were clearing a clogged pool instead of altering a living lake. Karen stood on the shoreline in a crisp blazer, filming cheerful HOA updates while water gurgled away behind her. Within 3 days, Lake Serenity had dropped nearly 4 feet. Docks that once floated calmly now sat crooked in exposed mud. Dead fish washed up along the shoreline, their silver bellies catching the sun. The smell of rotting vegetation spread through the neighborhood, and residents stopped opening their windows. Complaints flooded the HOA inbox. Karen responded with emojis and reassurances about short-term inconvenience for long-term beauty. What she didn't plan for was the rain. A stalled tropical system moved in during the second week of September, dumping 8 inches of rain in less than 2 days. Under normal conditions, the lake handled storms like this easily, but with the water artificially lowered and the natural flow disrupted, the system broke. I noticed it first when the creek at the north end began flowing backward. I called Karen immediately and explained, slowly, clearly, that the lake was now acting as a runoff basin. The pumps needed to stop. Emergency spillways needed to be opened. She accused me of exaggerating, told me the professionals had it handled, and hung up. By dawn, the lake had risen 6 feet, unevenly. Water surged toward the eastern shore where the land dipped lowest, and that's where Karen's 3 rental cabins sat. Chaos erupted. Basements flooded within minutes. Tenants screamed, hauling luggage through knee-deep water. Furniture floated. Brand-new hardwood floors warped and buckled. Karen stood in the middle of it all, mascara streaking down her face, screaming into her phone as firefighters arrived. When county officials asked who authorized the drainage, every finger pointed at her. I handed over my documentation, emails, warnings, measurements, and meeting minutes. By noon, the verdict was clear. The flooding wasn't an act of God, it was negligence. That night's emergency HOA meeting was brutal. Karen claimed no one could have predicted the flooding. I stood up and proved otherwise. The vote to remove her as HOA President was unanimous. The fallout was relentless. State regulators fined her $75,000 for environmental violations. Restoration costs topped $100,000. Insurance denied her claims. Lawsuits piled up from neighbors and tenants alike. By October, Karen was financially ruined. 3 weeks later, during restoration work, someone forwarded me a photo. Floating in the muddy wreckage of Karen's former rental cabin was one of her own laminated signs, "No unauthorized docks allowed." I couldn't have written a better ending myself. And if you think HOA power trips never end like this, subscribe because the next story is even worse. Want more content like this? Subscribe and turn on notifications.